to thank everybody for joining us. For those of you who don't know, we just pick up on Helen Baldwin. I chair our Park Public Works Committee, and it's a huge honor for me to do so. We recently contracted the city with the ODC network. If you aren't aware of what all of it that they do in West Michigan, I urge you to look them up, and I'm sure Dave will have to talk about. This is Mr. David Nightcray. He is the CEO and president, and Sarah Urban, public already once today, so I'm not going to do that again. And she's his colleague. They're here to facilitate what they call a SOAR analysis: strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. The airport property has been there for several generations. It's 170 acres approximately that the city of Saugatuck owns, located technically in the township. If you've never been there, we kind of take Old Alley in, make a left on 63rd, and it's on the right-hand side. You really can't miss it if you know what you're looking for. One of the things that I want to say about the property, important to me, is that there's a watershed there. There's a Silver Creek runs through it, feeds Silver Lake, Kalamazoo Lake, and our Lake Michigan, obviously. I think it's precious. It's really a beautiful property. The point of this conversation while we're here today, we are not designing anything. We're not going to walk away and have some, results that we implement. We're here to just gather feedback, see what you think is good for the property. I am biased in my opinion, that I think that for the citizens to know what's good for the property, they should have access to it. I think it'd be nice to open up the trails that already exist there and let them see what we have, and really then gain an appreciation for why personally I think it's so important to protect it. With that, David is going to have a presentation for us, and then he and Sarah are going to facilitate a lot of what I hope will be good, robust conversation and gathering. So again, thank you for coming, and
thank you very much. I think this is loud enough. Hopefully it's coming through well on Zoom as well. Can't get a reaction here, but I see John at least on Zoom, so I know there's at least one human watching me. Yes, like I was introduced, I'm with the ODC network. We're excited to be a part of this process with you. So briefly, I just want to get everyone in the room kind of up to the same speed as we can, so we can all start from kind of the same page. So if you're not familiar with the ODC network, the slide that I've got on the PowerPoint up above here represents kind of the breadth of things that we're involved in. So whether it's being part of nature-based education, conserving and protecting natural places, or providing those critical things like access, that's what our 501c3 nonprofit is built and geared to do. So that's our goal. That's why we love to partner with municipalities like the city of Saugatuck, who share some of those same goals. And so for us, it's our chance to use some of the skills we have to provide insights and support to you all as you make decisions about how to lead and develop your community. The SOAR analysis that we're going to talk about today, let's see if I can get my click forward here. Sarah helped design this map, which I love because it's made it pretty simple and it's designed to show scale. So what we're talking about today is the former airport property in the upper right. And what I love what Sarah's done here is contrasted that with the scope of downtown Saugatuck. So you can see we're really talking about our future aspirations, for a size of land that's either close to the size of Kalamazoo Lake or downtown, the footprint of downtown, and just what an incredible opportunity that is. Up here, there are some copies of both a ecological evaluation as well as a sustainability evaluation that our team did ahead of time. Those are available here in print copies. I'm sure the city has a way to distribute those digitally as well for those of you online who may want access to that later. Really, those two studies were designed to look at, one, what's the state on the ground in terms of the natural environment there, and then also in the context of both dollars and cents and kind of hard numbers of what that means for the sustainability impact of that property on the community as it stands. Just some highlights from that I found just fascinating. Some of the photos that our team took while they're out there. So on the left, and again, my background is in political science, not actual science. So those of you that know the Latin name, don't challenge me with that. But that's called a toad shade. It's a type of trillium, very special, native to Michigan. And then on the right, you can see some of the unique features of that property that we mentioned. It actually transitions from some wetland forest that you can see on the left into kind of a more upland forest. And that's where you can see on the right, those are hemlock trees where there's this neat transitional area as well. So there's unique ecosystems that exist there. Because it's such a large tract of land, those aren't necessarily readily available in other areas here. And because it has such continuity there, there's also listings in this report of all different types of species of concern you could look at that this property provides habitat for. One of the other things we did early on is looked at there is an existing trail system there, and there are some neat features, both that highlight the topography. You can see some of the topography maps in here as well, but also there's vernal ponds, which are seasonal ponds that, again, are special ecosystems. And then for those of you that love math, so our team uses modeling. We are not actually measuring what those trees are capturing from that site. We're using models provided by typically the federal government to look at carbon sequestration, as well as pollutant loads from air pollution reduced, which this last year, if any of you remember the smoke we had when it's talking about particulate matter, those are the different levels of microns that they were talking about in the news. And then the last category there is about water management. So a couple of the highlights, if you look kind of in that first line at the very top, that tree canopy that's there and the plant life that's there is already sequestering about 800 tons of CO2 annually, in addition to the carbon that is in those plants themselves already. This last year, it would have removed 12,000 pounds of air pollution, whether that's those specific chemical compounds highlighted or just particulate matter. And then it's also managing 20,000 gallons of stormwater and from different rain events throughout the year. And it is tied in integrally with the watersheds that flow into Lake Kalamazoo. So there's definitely more in here. Feel free to take a deep dive. I think there's some great suggestions from just a species availability, the realities of the topography on the site, the different soil types. So there are some recommendations in there in terms of which areas are more environmentally sensitive than others. Feel free to take a look at that. But really that was one part, or those were two parts of a three-part process. So like Helen shared, we've done kind of a look at, what's the environmental scape there? How is that impacting broader sustainability trends? And now what we're here to transition into is the SOAR analysis, which is to get your feedback on where are we trying to go with this property. I've got a couple folks in the waiting room here. Thanks for bearing with me while I figured out the tech side. I do work at a nature center, so tech is, I don't have to be on the hook for knowing all about that. Again, so that brings us to where we are, which is our SOAR analysis here. Let's see if I can click forward one more time. And like Helen shared, really 4 parts. So how many of you are familiar with a SWOT analysis? Yeah, so it's a lot like that. One of the things I like about using a SOAR analysis is I feel it's a little bit more future oriented. And one of the rules, so all these formats for strategic planning always give you rules. One of their rules here is to frame challenges as opportunities or threats as opportunities. So definitely glad to name things that we know are challenging, but our task is when we're presenting them in this format is to reframe those as what's the opportunity there, or what's, instead of just saying we don't want something, what is the positive thing we're trying to get to? So that's kind of the nuance between those two models. And one last reminder, we're just trying to use this model to look about the future of the former airport site. There will be many more steps beyond this. We're not here to develop anything, but really wanting to get a sense of feedback from you folks. So what will that look like today? So it's about individual brainstorming. So we're going to give you a chance to write some ideas on sticky notes. I think we have a group that's manageable enough where all of your sticky notes will end up on these sheets. I'm not even gonna have you filter them with a neighbor. I just trust the caliber that's in the room right now to handle that. Once we do that, we're gonna group them together in maybe 4 or 5 themes. And then we're gonna take some sticky dots, I know, pretty simple, and we're gonna let you vote for what you think is a top theme. While I love democracy, what comes out of this report is just gonna be those recommendations. If we vote something number 1, it does not mean that Ryan and council are gonna run out and do that number 1 thing. So just context for that, we are giving our input as part of a broader process. Once we've done that, we'll move to kind of through the 4 different parts. We'll wrap things up, and our goal is to have you folks out of here by 4. But there's good conversation. Sarah and I are in it for the long haul. So bring the pizza, we'll be here. All right. For those of you that are online, I am going to try to get up to help pass some things out, but I'm going to turn the microphone so hopefully you can still hear me. And we're going to move on to strengths. So the strength section is what's existing there that we can build on. Another way to think about that would be, what do we excel at as a community level? What's specific to that property? What's unique about our community? Are there shared values we have that we think puts us in a strong place to move forward at this site? So we're going to pass out some sticky notes, pass out some markers. The first, let's go with 3 minutes. Your job is to write down as many of those ideas as you can. Got some more. Who needs some? All right, so we'll take a few minutes, and remember, we're thinking, what is it there that we can build on? This can be related to the community, related to the property, related to a way you want to volunteer and support. What is it that we have that we can build on? Is there a chat? Yeah. There should be a chat.
Is there?
Might be. Ball.
Let me get, I just work for city government. I too do not know how IT works. Let me. Oh,
Okay, well.
I will. Take it.
For those of you online, we are looking at a way to turn on the chat feature. And then if we're not able to figure that out, we'll have a wrap up that includes the questions we've asked. And if folks would want to submit their ideas later, I'm sure we'll figure it out. Around if you scroll back. Yes, you got it. Therefore. get these up here, we'll start to group them. And then we'll prioritize them, take another minute or so to write down ideas. Thirty seconds or so. I'll allow a minute. I'll allow a minute. The city is paying by idea today, so, keep it coming, keep it coming. Oh, good, good.
I would say with the, I would say just having the.
All right, Sarah and I are gonna try to prove these. Same time, and we'll read them through, all of them here as we go. Start reading them here. For those of you online, I'm gonna start reading through some of the ideas that are coming in. We have education value, park system expansion, the value of the existing canopy, the existing foot trails that are there, property, it's an available property, the existing trails, the community's current interest in sustainability. It's stunningly beautiful, I agree. Oh, there's a unique partnership opportunity there because it's located in the township. Helps create linkage to other areas. That goes with this. Could be communities working together. It's a large tract of undeveloped environment. Supports the natural beauty that's integral to what makes the tri-communities unique and beautiful. There's interest in trails right now. I have a couple of the trail ones here. Hiking we have. More beauty. Residents and visitors come here because of the natural beauty of the area. There are existing buildings and infrastructure. Last existing continuous parcel that's undeveloped in that area. More on the beautiful nature of the site. That was a beautiful nature one. More beautiful nature. Let's see, yeah, mature forest. The ability to keep it natural. The size. There's some use for composting there already. I think we're capturing them here. Perfect. All right, for those of you in the room, did I not read anything that you thought you wrote? Good. All right, I'm gonna just take a minute to soak that in. So I think some of the groupings we have, the habitat that's there, the location, the size, the proximity, so the physical attributes of where that space is a theme I see. The way the trail system exists, the way it can be connected to other things. More on the size of the parcel. forest, yeah, the forest itself there, it's as a carbon sink, the value of the canopy, natural beauty of the area. So what I'm gonna do. So I'm trying to put dots on this, because that might be tricky. I'm gonna write down what I think some of those themes are, and then maybe get your hope in that, and then we'll go forward there, and we'll prioritize on that. So the existing forest, the value of the carbon capture that's there, the habitat that comes from that, the size and location. Partnerships. Okay. So group in the room here, is there another theme we want to add to those five? We had some off ones like education value that maybe aren't in there, composting. Any of those would you like to bump up into a theme that I'll let you folks prioritize on? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what strength of that property is it can support the tri-community plan? Yeah. Yeah.
The value of the water-based portion of that, I see the flex from that, but the value of it is also important. Because we have to take that up.
Yeah, so the existing compost and yard waste use has a value. Yep. We could look that up. I think that's a good note to take care of. Yeah, if there would need to be an alternative, and I'm guessing the length is probably what we're going to do. All right, let's vote on these here. This group seems pretty trusting. So can we do a show of hands for different groups? If they would pick their top two, like the individual. You trust me to be under both cabinets? Okay. Let's go with of all the strengths, we're trying to determine which one you personally feel is the top one of that property. How many would you say is the existing habitat or forest? Oh, certainly. So the existing forest, kind of the carbon sink that's there, the habitat that's there, you could copy and paste the species of concern lists from those reports into that setting. Size, location, proximity. A lot of folks referenced there's just not many parcels of land that are that big, period. There's not many that are located in such close proximity to other partners. The existing trails would be a third theme. The ready availability of partnerships and connections tying in the tri-community plan, the natural beauty of just being in that place, and then the existing use case, so the compost, the yard waste, there's a value there as well. And by not voting for one, you're not saying it's not a strength. I'm just looking for what's what would your number one be? So I will count when you raise your hand. Let's start with the existing tree canopy, forest, carbon sequestration. All right, hold and pause. Thank you very much. What about the size and location of the property? That's the top string. 2, 3. All right. The existing trails. Cool. 1, 2. The availability of partnerships tying with the tri-community plan. All right. Are we cheating democracy here? Let's do one more vote here, and then we'll see if the group feels like we need to start from the beginning. Do we have some double votes? Who would make that with their top vote? Okay. And then what about just the natural beauty that's there? All right. Fact check the votes. 13. One person, we didn't count their vote, so maybe this one earns 2. All right, perfect. So let's move right along. That's how the process is going to go. It should go swimmingly here. The next piece is opportunities. So let me just move the slide forward. For those of you online, the theme that emerged top in strengths here is the existing forest, the carbon sink that it is, and the habitat. It's just the special habitat that exists. You wouldn't let me screen share. You know, the default was off. I don't know if that's just on my computer or something, but. Okay, so these opportunities are what we're talking about next. A way to look at this is what's going on around us. A couple folks even were identifying that in the strengths when we were talking about how there's already interest in sustainability, interest in trails. That's a great way to kind of read the room or read the community in terms of what interests are there. Some other questions you could think about are, what changes are happening in the community? What gaps there might be for residents? What threats that we could, reframe as a opportunity here? Are there needs and wants that residents have that aren't currently being met? And what partnerships would take this to the next level? I think we were kind of dancing around that as well in the first one, but those are just some ideas of basically trying to see what's the opportunity in front of us, what's going around at this point in time. So same process, write down some sticky notes. I'm going to hold you to the 2-ish minutes. Please. Yes, so aspirations would be what the future looks like, what we want to see once we've done everything, and results is how we measure success. So aspirations really is setting that target. Results is being able to name what that target looks like.
I wonder about the threats piece of it, because there are some negative threats. Is that what we would turn into an opportunity?
That would be right now, yes. So I would phrase it as, so the goal of SOAR is to not focus solely on the threat part of it, but what's the opportunity that we'd have? And in that case, with invasive species, it would be protecting rare habitat, preserving rare habitat. It would be the positive framing of that. So I'm trying to think of what else. The threat of fragmentation, property fragmentation, right? So one option, I don't know if this is an option. I don't know how legality works with that, but for example, if it was a private property and it could be parceled and sold, the threat of that is the habitat fragmentation where you don't have this large chunks of land. So the positive framing of that is preserving the biodiversity in a large section. Is that helpful, Glenn? Yeah. All right away. Oh, thank you. Thank you for insisting. And these are not in your handwriting, so you didn't do a switch, Ryan. All right, for those of you listening, I'll start reading them while they come in, and Sarah's grouping them for us. So protecting habitat, you know, once it's gone, we won't have that much land again. Protecting the environment, preserving the old forest, working to connect our trails, protect plant life from insects, for example, the hemlock woolly, a delicate invasive species. Create natural space to attract people in the area. Keep the sky dark at night. That's a good take on that. Create a place for people to collect composted humus for their landscape to hold rainwater. Relieve pressure from Saugatuck Dunes State Park and Mount Baldhead Park. Create variety for hikers to enjoy. Relatively quiet access there for people to access via bicycle. Create a large chunk of undeveloped or minimally developed green space for native plants and animals who don't get to vote. Good qualification there. Supporting the schools through education. Composting revenue. Try community environmental projects. Connecting trails. Try community interest in trails. Interest in preserving natural habitat. Thank you. Open trails for health and recreation. Uses marketing for tourism. Control invasive species from choking out the canopy. A nature-sensitive site for affordable housing. Build on tri-community planning connections. Protecting great habitat. Meet growing demand for green space parks that provide a variety of experiences. We're hearing the term variety a few times here. Protect space for animals. Winter sports is lacking. There's an opportunity there. Well said. Healthy lifestyle for residents. Any others? Fast, curious. Puppet. And Sarah's rocking and rolling with the themes. Sarah, do you mind talking about the themes you found? Since you found them?
Sure. It's looking like there's a lot of.
Yeah, write them up. Yeah. Sticky notes.
Thank you.
Tell John, I hope he's not texting and driving.
So it looks like there's a fair amount of recreation, there's hiking, there's biking. Sorry, there's a fair amount of votes for, or support for recreation, hiking, biking, winter sports. Tourism helps both health and recreation. There's a lot of protecting the plants, animals, making sure that we're prioritizing the restoration of that space and getting rid of some of those invasive species. That's what the vast majority of them have been connecting to.
Yeah, we've got a section too just on the trails and connectivity and partnerships, opportunity for partnerships and what's on people's minds right now. Education, both in schools and wildlife education. Ooh, art, where art and nature meet. Sculpture trail, cool. Yeah, so let's try to come up with our top themes, Sarah, on that one, and then we'll do the same really official democratic vote process. Your handwriting is better. While Sarah's doing that, one of the things I thought was neat, coming from the strengths to the opportunity, is that notion of the protection
protection aspect. In my mind, that's talking about how it's easier to start with something that's existing than recreate it in a different place. One of the things we've seen as an organization, so we've been involved in lots of restoration projects, and we would agree that if a community wants to have high quality habitat in some part of the community, it's a lot easier to start by protecting what exists than going back and restoring. Not that you can't or that you shouldn't, but it was neat for me to see how you folks were already connecting that notion of protection of some of that high quality habitat. And then I think the other visual one that came to my head was the connectivity side. So looking at that map again, through the tri-community plan, having trail connections. When you think about, I was pointing out that the box of this land looks really large, but when you think about it in the scope of Lake Michigan, this area is actually really quite small. And how are we connecting to the different communities that are here? And is that an opportunity where, where we have communities that sometimes make decisions separately? Is there an opportunity with this to make kind of a joint declaration or statement with some of those things that we're trying to get to? All right, so Sarah's got, you can call it a separate one. John can't vote because he's driving, so it's all right. We'll see if that's got legs somewhere else. 4 main themes, the recreation, hiking, biking, tourism, protection, restoration, connectivity, and then our notion of like, could this be a spot for nature in our country? Any other ones that I'm missing, or would you like us to pull out anything specific from those sticky notes that you folks have?
I wonder about the first one, about if we vote for it, because it's a lot of hiking trails, and all of a sudden people think we want mountain biking and,
Yeah.
a lot of kind of nature.
How could we separate that? Sometimes by moving, we can really do that totally fair.
Maybe hiking goes with connectivity and connecting stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Sure, let's do that. So for that vote, we're framing recreation as more of the activity that draws folks to places and less about, am I framing that right? More active recreation?
Just different of what the.
Yes. Medium to high impact recreation. Connectivity would be low impact. Is that fair in the group? Okay. A quick one. We're not perfect.
Well, you know, connectivity, anyway, the state always for connectivity also wants to maintain and preserve what's there. So they're not, you're not going to move the other. The whole point of wanting to go and walk or run to this area is because you're preserving and the vibrant nature of nature that's there now. So it's not exclusive.
Oh, yes.
Sure thing. Just let them know this is not like the Britney Spears mic, so it's a little hard to navigate with. Reframing, or just to repeat what was just shared, is that perhaps some of these aren't mutually exclusive, correct? That there would be folks who'd value both connectivity and protecting and restoring. That's very accurate. Is there, just talking to the group here, would there be folks who, and you can raise your hands, this seems like a group that's not going to be upset if you have a different opinion than they do. Would there be anyone here who would just like to protect it without providing the connectivity or access? Yeah, there's a group that's, yeah. So how can we, Mhm.
Or, you know, what, if I really want to use it, I
Yeah. So perhaps for our voting theme, so remember, we're going to try to have top priorities. Oh, Sarah? Yep, and again, yep. So what Sarah just said is what we're going to look at is we have themes of more active, high impact recreation, protection for the purpose of habitat, and then protection or connection for the purpose of connecting residents. And again, we're prioritizing, we're prioritizing these themes. We're not saying one is better than the other, but just what your preference would be. And then art and nature combination is the fourth one. So we'll do the vote, count of hands. I'll let Sarah count this time. She is more trustworthy. How many would like to see their top opportunity be medium to high impact recreation development? Okay. I could even count to that number. Yes, sorry. Now protection or restoration for top purpose of habitat. 3. Same thing for the purpose of the connectivity and of with people. 10 is what I got. And then how many for the connection between art and nature? Great. All right, we're going to move on to aspirations. So again, this is we're looking at what do we want to see at the preferred future. So what do we see? What do we want to achieve? How can we make a difference? What are we passionate about? Those are some questions that would go through this. You know, what's our hope for that property? What will we like it to be in the future?
We look to find it on the find only find the one has to read the pedestrian bridge in the area of children, plus the ministry for
That's awesome. Yeah, a place where the west and east side of the community can connect together.
Yeah.
Available. Yeah. One of the other ways you could be writing on your sticky notes here would be, are there, no, better way to describe it, are there feeling words? How do you want to feel when this property is looked at? You know, what I just heard here around wanting the community to be together across an area that's been divided. So togetherness, that would be perfectly acceptable to put down on a sticky note. If you need more markers or sticky notes, just let me know. What was that? You can group them and then I'll read them, yeah, while they're coming. They've got. Yeah. Yeah, so again, what would our vision be for the future? What do we want to achieve? How will that make a difference? What are we passionate about? We'll take another minute here. For those of you online, if you did want to try to share something, just kind of note those things. We'll be sure to figure out a way to collect those from you. I know some of you have been furiously texting with Helen. You can continue doing that. What? 30 seconds. All right. All right, I'll read through these for our digital guests. A place for families to spend time in nature, a use that benefits the greatest number of Saugatuck citizens while maintaining the natural beauty, a local attraction used daily by tri-community residents, start land match gesture for neighbors, being awed by nature, trail signage to educate about plants, animals, habitats, forests, birds, positive intra-community connection, accessibility for all, universal access trails, connection to the Blue Star non-motorized trail, restore trails to connect communities, awesome trails, trails linked to Tails and Trails property, promote protection of nearby parcels. Ooh, an ODC shout out. I love those. Love the ODC build out at Ridgepoint Trails. That would be amazing here. Shelter with picnic tables, grills, community gardens for part of the land. Encourage more conservation. Nature preserved, safely preserved, no threat of development in the future. Maintain the last piece of untouched land, light activity, question mark. Compost facility for our residents. Sports fields in disturbed areas. Winter sports haven to make Saugatuck a 4-season destination. Cross-country skiing, cross-country running. Area known as Art Coast and Nature Destination. Connect to landfill property for trails and sports. Snowshoeing, cross-country in the winter. Compost, read that, compost facility for residents. Let's think about our groupings here. Yeah, go ahead.
So it looks like aspirations, giving people access, giving people places to spend time in nature, connecting the trails in the community themselves and connecting to things that we already have in the community, having the trails accessible, maybe adding things like a shelters or even the signage for education that would make trails easier to go to, preserving the nature itself, and having the recreation benefits, the cross-country skiing, running. Somebody mentioned it makes Saugatuck a 4-season destination if we add some of those winter activities.
So I'd love to ask, there was one that was awed by nature. And I was wondering if that person would be willing to share what that means to them. Is that yours? Yeah, thank you. So the group, there was one that was awed by nature, which I thought is a description that definitely conjures images. And what the individual shared was just having that space the way it kind of is, with some access to see and just be surrounded by it. All right, so let's try to come up with some themes here so we can get a pulse on what our aspirations are for the site. Yes. Let's go earth tone brown here. Yeah, I mean, we got so many good choices. We've refrained from yellow, which I still don't know why they would make the yellow mark. There's just. While Sarah's kind of putting those themes together, did anyone have a different thought going from opportunities to aspirations? They might have been talking about the same thing. So, for example, trails are listed as an opportunity. Now as an aspiration. If someone repeated that theme, any difference in looking at it from a lens that's future oriented versus, what you think is an opportunity?
And then the aspiration is sign. It's got the sign that. And I also put.
So that's key here, right? What that's saying is there's some immediate going from, level existing trails with developed trail system to universal access system to a universal access system that also provides education. So there's a continuum in that aspiration. Is there another aspiration that works similarly, or yeah, continuum and those actions we build on, right? So the notion of if there is something we did tomorrow, yeah. Sorry, folks, who didn't just get to hear that great comment, but folks were suggesting that there's both the continuum of trail along trail development. So from just having the trails exist to maybe where they're universally accessible, to where they're universally accessible and also providing educational messaging and signage. But then in the same way, along with those connectivity pieces. You know, there are some aspects of the connectivity that are in our control, you know, tomorrow or in the very short term, and maybe how those things could be building blocks for some longer term aspirations. All right, Sarah's got some themes. Share with the group.
So with the aspirations, benefiting people, connecting the organizations and nearby properties, creating year-round recreation, and preserving or conserving those areas for the purpose of conserving nature. So you guys feel like we're ready to vote? So who thinks the benefit to the people, the residents, the families, people who would use it? Maybe their top one. Connecting existing organizations or nearby natural properties. Creating year-round recreation or recreation possibilities for people. And then preserving or conserving the wild space. Yeah.
-10 votes on.
No matter where this falls, it still is on the step.
All right, so we're moving into our last part of the SOAR analysis, which is the results. So this is how we know we've gotten to our aspirations. This group, I feel like, is an advanced group, probably should have done the SOAR 201 with them. So I'm wondering for the results, how do we want to label those? Because sometimes we could try to make them the SMART goals, you know, like very specific. We want 1,000 new feet of trails, you know, by this time. We could keep going with kind of the Post-it note brainstorm of just what you as an individual would like to use as a metric. I'm good with that too. The third way we could look at it is if you wanted to be a little bit pushing down the process and talk about what you would see as the low-hanging fruit building block that you were getting to, just around, you know, what might be something we could do tomorrow. So those are three options that we can kind of modify this last page. Talk about maybe some low-hanging fruit we could do tomorrow. Talk about what you as an individual see as the top result that could come from this. Or the last one would be, you know, try to workshop to some, you know, SMART goals, like a specific tangible thing. Okay. Great. Let's rule that one out. So who would rather just come up with their top individual, here's the results you'd like to see, here's how you'll know we've succeeded, or you'd like to jump into immediate? What do you folks think? Some low-hanging fruit that if you could wave a magic wand tomorrow and do something, get those written down. Yeah. Is there excitement around that latter thing? Okay. So let me flip slides here. So yeah. So instead of the question of how do we know what success looks like, we're going to just brainstorm ideas of what we could do tomorrow to get to our aspirations. Is that a fair way to say that, folks? Okay. Again, use your sticky notes. Write as many things down as you want. Keep them coming fast and furious, and then we'll group them. And who knows? Maybe you guys will literally have a project we can work on as a community tomorrow.
When they began to start training, so we think about what we would do tomorrow.
Yeah, well said. So again, highlighting that the actions we can do tomorrow and in the short run are those building blocks for future generations. And even if we have a vision that's 20, 30 years out, what can we be doing for our community today that can be used in that way?
Carry it all, So next steps from this, we're gonna gather all the data we have, get it all written up into a report for the city. So we're gonna try to capture every comment that's going in that and be part of the appendix. We're gonna synthesize that a little bit with the reports we already did with the city. And then I think that will all be at the committee Tuesday. So we're moving quick. So at that point, we're going to package up the input when we get in, put that in the city's court, and then, through the city process, will determine how that's used. Is there anything else that would be good to contact city folks in terms of next steps?
There's nothing that's, again, nothing that's not clear.
I'll start.
The meeting though, I think that, I'll be,
Yes, and I forgot to talk into the microphone for that. I was going over next steps. The ODC is going to compile all the data from this, combine it with the earlier reports, and then the DPW has a meeting on Tuesday. PPW? Parks and Public Works. There it is. And that at that point, all that information will be there in the record for folks to look at. And then Helen also mentioned her hope is to take some of what the low-hanging fruit we're thinking about and see what steps would be needed to go through some of those ideas. And that meeting is Tuesday at 10 a.m. It's a regular meeting at City Hall. All right, so I will read some of what we had. Work with the township to develop plan for trails that could be more easily connected. Plan to groom existing trails and potentially expand where it's easy. More trails. Starting some guided walks and hikes. Restore trails with educational markers. Open it to the public, create parking area. Legitimize the existing trails, communicate about it. Open park, clear trails, maybe gravel parking, portable restrooms. Let residents know they can hike there at their own risk. Open trails for hiking, minimal impact on nature. Clear mark, distinct trails, broad range of community members participating in envisioning the future for the land, including those who might prefer options this group wouldn't suggest. Connect to Township Park for cross-country practice. Conserve large portions, identify areas to keep conserved now based on the report and restrict access. Buy and conserve surrounding land. Get some cost estimates to deal with invasive species. All right, so I think Sarah, I think you've grouped these. So we've got, how can we activate the space? Are there some guided walks we could do there? How do we communicate it? How do we talk to the public about it? How do we develop the existing trails, marking them, even tying in what areas we might want to exclude? Is there additional conversations that need to have? I think that's always an important thing, right? Just because you weren't in the room today doesn't mean your voice doesn't count in this. So I would encourage the city to look for other options like that. And then conservation. Are we identifying areas we want to keep conserved that may have been highlighted in the report and make sure we're protecting those? Yes, tying that in with invasive species. So I think the four things we have here, Sarah. Activating the space.
I call the information gathering, do more homework. And then the last one is do some conservation. Let's conserve high value land. All right. So in my mind, the activating the property, you could do without necessarily building out or defining new trails, but maybe having the guided hike idea, trail marking, some things like that, or using it for like the cross country or some of those other ideas. So how to activate the space for people in the current context. Building out and defining the trails, I just think there's a lot there. I guess you could say that's a subset of activating it, but in my mind, there's pretty clear interest in defining what's already there and making sure it's safe, telling people they can use it. Do more homework. I think getting more voices, making some connections across to the, I think the township was mentioned in the top one, but also with local schools around other uses. And then I think this last one's pretty clear too, in terms of what folks are suggesting is, if we know something's really special, let's just say we're not going to use it. And how do we begin to actively protect if there's invasive species that are a concern, and how do we make sure that we guard what we've got? Any amendments to those things or additions to make sure we catch for notes? I kind of agree with one of the 1, 2, go in.
Does the group feel good about that? Keep 1 and 2.
What you didn't see is there was a tiny plus right there. That's actually one theme. We'll do that. 2 is here and 3 is down here. Yeah. Yeah. It's all part of the plan. Well, I'd love to get your pulse. So we'll start from the bottom up. Who thinks pick those places we need to conserve and do it is the #1 thing we should do coming out of this. Okay. Who thinks we still have to have more conversations, make sure voices are heard before we jump and do something? All right, we got 1 on that. 2. Sorry, excuse me. Yes. 3. Yeah. And then who thinks the combination of activating the property, defining the trails is the #1 thing? I think I got 7. Yeah. Maybe. All right, so before we close here, is there anything we didn't capture through any of this that as resident, non-resident, supporter of the community, you want to make sure is captured and what goes to the city? Any notes that we didn't think about, you want
the city to think about your last chance to put something into the collection of data?
Yeah, just for like a mid to longer term study, I guess we talked about, do we continue to use that for composting property or an alternative? So there could be a study on what is the cost of an alternative and the impact to the property.
Yep.
And it could be used for, but I mean, in the use of this.
Well, it sounds like there's a better alternative in the reports that instead of just dumping yard waste there, there's some way to manage.
It could be more managed. Yep. Yeah, I think the report provides some of that. I think the financial value analysis or the alternative approach has not been researched, right? So I think we've provided some suggestions on how we could do things slightly differently at the site, which you certainly could take, but I think they're probably, on this one, it would be looking at, what is the value we're providing taxpayers with right now with that? And are there alternatives that we haven't thought about? There are, compost yard waste service things that could be looked into. I'm out of my depth if I could list those for you right now. Yeah, alternative site or partnership. I mean, I'm sure someone somewhere will take your leads for a cost.
I would, recommend somebody, there, it really, we should be,
Engage with private community and then look at other models. That could be, well, I hear it's homecoming tonight, so you can go plant some seeds. Give them your 2 cents.
Good team, good.
All right. Anything else from us, folks, before we let you go and we start seriously compiling all this? Please, Alan. Yeah.
Like this, I was really happy one of the ODC has been this they're piano professional and so such a depth of information there and really highly lead to and I understand that we're not going to be that way in participation and I will pick that up on Friday night, but so that it's here Keep that slide up, so if you do want to email us or share your thoughts, feel free. We're happy to pass things back on as well to the community. Thank you. Thank you for shout out.
Thank you for doing such a wonderful job facilitating the meeting. Yes, it went so well. You said everything you should. Thank you. Oh, it's a kid. That's so cool. Oh my God.
They're a big fan of dessert. Is there another meeting? Travel. Okay. Across the street. Yeah, we can open that up. Yeah.
Thanks. And give it like time after to come and say, you know, while you're working on the airport property, you get the 10-year lease on property that's $100 a year. We'll build out the trails down here.
Let's see what, like, let's see what.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Let me get that thing. I want to get. Check that out. Yeah. Obvious.
Well, it's that, it's the thing, and then I brought it up. This is the fact that nothing has happened for 30 years. And well, it's actually zoned R2, which means you can have 1 acre site to possibly grow up to everything. Put in 100. No, I don't like that. You don't like that. And the beauty of this is that by opening the spring, prevent that.
Oh, thanks. I assure you, time frame, it won't look as, we're gonna just get it quantified. That's what I just, doing like so like, you know. Yeah, yeah. I don't think I stopped. Probably. I think you guys started. And I think they're very. Huh?